Hello and welcome to our podcast on metacognition and effective teaching and learning. This podcast was created by Samantha Browne, Orla Curley, Peter O'Rourke, Dwain Shek and Kevin Rowe. It was recorded on the 11th November in the University of Limerick. This podcast will focus on the following aspects: types of knowledge, metacognitive strategies, the role of the teacher in metacognition, and reflective learning. Flavel and Browne defined metacognition as a knowledge about and regulation of one's cognitive activities in learning process. Don't worry though, it's not as complicated as it sounds. Just think of it as driving your own learning, or learning how to learn. So let's break up the word. Meta, or going meta, means becoming an audience for your own performance. In this case, your own intellectual performance. Cognition is the mental process involved in gaining knowledge, such as thinking, knowing, remembering, and problem solving. So basically, metacognition is an important step in getting students to become more independent learners.
In relation to metacognition, knowledge is broken up into three types. The first, declarative, so the what. This could be factual information written or spoken. The second, procedural, so the how. Knowledge of how to perform tasks. And the third, conditional, so the when. So when to use your procedural knowledge. Conditional knowledge is very important, as without knowing when to use your knowledge, the first two types can sometimes be irrelevant. To understand this, take a simple example of using an umbrella. You may know what an umbrella is and what it is used for, hence the declarative. You may know how to use the umbrella, hence the procedural. But if you do not know when to use it, your knowledge of the umbrella may not be very much use to. So therefore, it is important to understand the three types of knowledge when thinking about your own learning.
Anderson 2014 states that anyone can benefit from sharpening their minds. Being able to focus longer, remember more and think faster can be advantageous in life. Whether you're learning a new skill, applying for a job or studying for a test. The ability to learn is affected by many factors and is not fixed in nature. Metacognitive strategies comprise of any techniques and methods used to improve your capability to problem solve, learn and think. The goal is to master your mind. It's important to gain an understanding of the beliefs and behaviours that affect your own individual capability to think, whilst developing techniques to improve upon them. Metacognitive strategies can be as basic as recognising the mental attitude of diet, exercise and sleep, to broader techniques such as information acronyms and method of Loki. Metacognition is a broad spectrum. The strategies associated with metacognition are endless. In order to maximise your learning potential, it is essential to systematically assess the effectiveness of your strategies. Strategies can comprise of any mantras, methods, beliefs, thoughts, tricks, practices, moods or behaviours which are specific to advancing one's ability to learn. Any strategy adopted must follow three simple functions. Planning. Identifying appropriate strategies, understanding what they should do and how and where to use them. Monitoring. Keeping an eye on progress and performance. Evaluating. Reviewing the effectiveness of plans made and adjusting the plan if required. For example, to improve memory, one may undertake a training program with Sudoku and crosswords. However, unless one tracks the schedule of the training program and review its effectiveness, it is impossible to identify the best combination of games and schedule to use. It takes a lot of time to become an expert learner. One must identify and apply techniques that are used to develop specific skills whilst overcoming specific difficulties. Mnemonic devices are prime examples of techniques employed where locations, visual cues or anagrams are used to aid one's learning.
Now we will look at the role that teachers can play in developing metacognitive skills and reflective learning in their students. Gall says that learning how can't be left to the students and it must be taught. In other words, children don't generally use strategies or shortcuts to help themselves learn, so this responsibility falls back on us as teachers. However, metacognitive activities shouldn't simply be tacked on as an afterthought. Instead, they should be integrated into regular classroom activities. It's also important to create a culture of metacognition in our classrooms by becoming models of metacognition ourselves. Remember, students will only value what you put time into. An example of a metacognitive activity that teachers could use would be a wrapper activity. A wrapper activity is a task that surrounds a pre-existing learning task and promotes students' metacognition. Let us take, for example, exam wrappers. When students are given back their exams, they complete an exam reflection sheet. They write down what study strategies they used and identify new approaches that they might use when studying for the next exam. These sheets are returned to the students before the next exam and they can make a new study plan. This encourages self-reflection and self-monitoring in learning. Another metacognitive technique is called going meta. This refers to the process of stepping back to observe what you're doing and becoming an audience to your own intellectual performance, like looking at yourself in a mirror. It's our responsibility as teachers to create this mirror for our students. It's assumed that videotaping and reviewing our own performance is more suitable to physical skills like sport and dance, and that cognitive work is often invisible and can't be observed in the same way. However, we can adapt on this technique to improve our cognitive skills. For instance, when learning a language, students can record themselves speaking to improve on their pronunciation. After recording, they can listen back, noticing the mistakes they made, deciding on what was good, what needs practice, and coming up with strategies to improve in the future.
Reflective learning is the process of internally examining and exploring an issue of concern triggered by an experience, which creates and clarifies meaning in terms of self and which results in a changed conceptual perspective. Basically, reflective learning is making sense of your experience. You have an experience, you reflect on it, you learn, you apply changes. If things don't go well, a reflective learner will do things differently in the future, so mistakes are good as long as you learn from them. In learning, reflection is an action that solves problems. Reflective learners draw on their own past experiences, knowledge, emotions, and expectations to help them solve a current problem. To make the most of a learning opportunity, students need to be given time to reflect and become active learners rather than passive learners. Passive learners learn inside the box, so to speak. They follow directions given by the teacher, do the exam, then forget everything they learned. Active learners do more than just listen. They ask questions, they participate in class discussions, and are always enhancing their higher order thinking capabilities. Active learners are also far less likely to tune out during class. Reflective learning is also very important in teaching. A teacher tries a new approach, they reflect on how it went, they make their conclusions, then they make necessary alterations so it will be an improved version next time. Students and teachers need to take time to reflect on their learning and teaching. Otherwise, it can be difficult to realise what they did to make them either fail or succeed. If a student completes 2 tests and receives an A on the first and a D on the second, he or she may not know what they did differently on each test for them to end up with such different results. The teacher needs to help the student in reflecting on their exams. Without this reflection, they will not know how to improve. Metacognition involves taking what we learn in one situation and changing it into a level of understanding that is much more likely to be used in another situation.
To conclude, metacognition is not as daunting a concept as it seems. It is, however, a vital skill that we need to promote for our students. We need to do this by becoming models of metacognition ourselves, creating a culture of metacognition in the classroom, encouraging reflective learning, and giving students strategies to help them self-monitor and to drive their own learning. We hope that we've cleared things up for you and that our podcast can help you to develop metacognitive skills both in yourselves and for your students. Thank you for listening.